In this tutorial, we'll explore how Marmalade's Extensions Development Kit, or EDK, allows developers to access any iOS or Android APIs they choose. This is achieved by building platform-specific libraries that can be linked with the Marmalade app at deployment time. We're going to use the EDK to create a new API extension, allowing the display of a native message box. We'll first implement and test the extension on Windows, then do the same for Android and iOS. An EDK extension starts with a pure C header file, describing the extension functions and containing some custom metadata. Our message box API header file looks like this. We give this header file the .s4e extension, which is proprietary to Marmalade. Now we're going to right-click on the file and note the various options to create the extension project for iPhone, Android and Windows. We're going to click to create the extension for Windows. The EDK creates a whole bunch of folders and files for us. Most importantly, it's created a Marmalade project file for the Windows implementation of the extension. We double-click this file to create the Visual Studio project that we'll use to implement the extension API for Windows and build the Windows version of the extension library. Marmalade has stubbed out a bunch of functions for us, a single initialization and termination function for the extension as a whole, and a single function that maps to the function prototype we defined in the S4E header file. To implement the native message box for Windows, all we need to do is include the Windows header file and implement the core function by calling through to the standard Windows message box function. Now we simply build the project. We'll choose a release configuration. We've now built the Windows version of the EDK library that will be linked with our Marmalade app when deploying to Windows, for example in the desktop simulator. And here's the library file itself. Next, we'll do the same for Android. Again, we right-click on the S4E file, and this time choose to create the extension for Android. For the Android version of the extension, the EDK creates two Marmalade project files, one for the Android Java code and one for the Android native code. The EDK has also auto-generated two source files, one Java and one C++. The C++ file contains a series of JNI calls through to the Java code and should not need to be modified. So let's look at the Java code. Marmalade has created a single Java class for the extension, with a single function that maps to the prototype we defined in the S4E header file. Implementing a native message box using the Android Java APIs isn't quite as simple as the Windows example, so we'll simply switch here to the fully implemented code, which is detailed in the Marmalade reference documentation. To build the extension for Android, make sure you have the Android SDK, Android NDK and the Java SDK all installed. We can build the Android native library by double-clicking the native MKB. And we can build the Android Java library by double-clicking the Java MKB. We've now built the Android version of the EDK library that will be linked with our Marmalade app when deploying to Android. Finally, we'll create the extension for iOS, again by right-clicking the S4E file, selecting Build iPhone Extension. As expected, the EDK has created a Marmalade project file for the iOS implementation of the extension. It's also auto-generated a single source file. To implement the native message box for iOS, all we need to do is include the UIKit header file and implement the core function by calling through to the UIKit APIs. We're now ready to build the project and generate the iPhone library. This Marmalade project can only be built on a Mac using Marmalade Mac together with the iPhone SDK. So to keep things simple, we'll swap to a Mac here and we'll double-click the MKB to create an Xcode workspace. Xcode fires up and loads the workspace, and we can now build the project to generate the library. We'll do this first in debug and next in release. We've now built the iOS version of the EDK library that will be linked with our Marmalade app when deploying to iOS, and here are the files. To recap, we've designed an EDK extension and implemented it for Windows, Android and iOS. Now we'll show how to use the EDK extension within a Marmalade app. So let's fire up the simplest Hello World type application. First, we're going to include the EDK extension as a sub-project. Next, we'll include the EDK header file. Finally, we'll add a line to create the message box. Note that the EDK has automatically provided us with a function to check the availability of the extension on the target platform. Let's now build the Hello World application for Windows and run in the desktop simulator. And there's the native message box dialog for Windows. Let's close the dialog and exit the app. Now we're going to build an ARM release configuration and launch the deployment tool to deploy the app to Android and iOS. In each case, the deployed app binary will be automatically linked to the correct platform-specific version of the EDK library. Using iTunes, we can deploy the app straight to iPhone, and here it is running. Similarly, we can deploy the Android version to a device, and here it is running. To summarize, the EDK allows you to design your own abstraction APIs to call native OS functionality, to create native OS libraries, automatically link these into your Marmalade app.